Well, hello and welcome back to Cops and Kids Storytelling Room series presented by PPL. And for all of you that do not know, my name is Miss Molly, and over here I brought my little guest friend, and his name is Honey. Honey, can you say hello? Hi. Honey was able to come to the Cops and Kids room with me today. And today we get to introduce you to our storytelling reader. Her name is Karen Dunn, and she's a Cops and Kids volunteer. Now Karen gets to read you this story called Extra Yarn, and it's written by Mac Barnett and illustrated by, let's see, honey, illustrated by John Klassen. Honey, aren't you so excited to read this story today? I think I am. So you are going to tune on in and listen to Extra Yarn. And don't forget, at the end of the story, there will be a craft for you to listen to. And you get to create the craft all on your own. And the craft is so much fun because you can take a day to finish the craft, or if you want, it could take a whole week. I have mine hanging in my room, and my brother has his on the refrigerator. So tune in and make sure to wait till the end of the story to finish the craft. We hope you have a great day. Bye!
Hello, boys and girls. It's nice to have you join us today. My name is Karen Dunn, and just a moment. I'm wearing a mask today because of this virus that's traveling around, and we want to keep everybody safe. But for now, I'd like to take it off just so that you might be able to hear me just a little bit better. As I was saying, I'm Karen Dunn, and I'm a volunteer here at the reading room on Wednesdays, but unfortunately I've not been able to come here because of this virus that is traveling around. But I can come to you right now via this video to share a book with you and to tell you about a craft project that I have. Before I was a volunteer here at the Cops and Kids Reading Room, I was a teacher. I taught 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, but mostly I spent a lot of time teaching 1st graders. So I hope you are reading this summer, and let's get started with maybe a new book for you, or maybe an old book for you as well. It's called Extra Yarn. Before we get into the book, though, I'd like us to think about the title. Do you know what yarn is? What? Go ahead, just shout it out. I can hear you. Yarn, you're right. It is something you can turn into making a sweater, or maybe you could knit it into a hat, or even maybe knit a pair of gloves. Now let's think about that first word, extra. What does that mean? Well, let's think. Did you ever have any extra cookies? Ones that you couldn't eat? Your belly was full? Well, extra means you have too much of something, or you might even share those cookies with somebody else. But the title here is called Extra Yarn, and it's written by Mac Barnett. It's illustrated by John Klassen. Over here in the corner, you might see a little silver circle, and that's an award this book won. It's called the Caldecott Honor Book Award. And it just means that a group of people thought this was a really good book, and I hope you will enjoy this book and like it as well as those people. So let's go inside for the book called Extra Yarn. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself, and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out that she could, and she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and for Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Can you see anything that doesn't usually wear a sweater? I see a house, a mailbox, and even a birdhouse. Things began to change in that little town. It doesn't look so black and white anymore, does it? News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn. And people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would love to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. Why do you think she didn't sell that yarn? That's a lot of money. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." Why was the Archduke so angry? Where's the yarn? But it looks like that box landed on a little piece of ice that's floating across the sea. Coming back to Annabelle. It turned out she was happy. Do you know why? I hope you enjoyed that story today, and at this time I'd like to go ahead and share a craft project that you might like to try to do using some extra yarn.